There's Bob.
My apologies for being late. I had.
All right. And do you want to make me co-host so I can help with muting and whatnot if I need to?
Yeah, how to do that.
I should be able to.
I don't see any to pushing the button. The simple button to push it. Top row.
All right. Looks like Ted might be here.
I see Ted's name.
Yes.
All right.
That's it. Then we're
All
going
right. We're recording, so we'll get started here. Will the meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission for Wednesday, May 1st, 2024, please come to order. This evening's meeting will be a Zoom virtual planning and zoning meeting hosted by Zoom. During this meeting, our procedures will be as follows. 1, when you first enter the Zoom meeting, you'll be in a virtual waiting room until the meeting host admits you. 2, please be aware that your camera, if you have one, and your microphone may be muted by the meeting host when you enter the meeting. You can turn on your camera at any time so that you can be seen by others when and if you choose to. In order to run an efficient and orderly meeting in this virtual environment, unless stated otherwise by the meeting chairman, during the meeting host may keep everyone other than the commission members muted. You will still be able to hear everything said by the commission members, even if you're muted and or your camera is not on. There will be opportunity for public comment during public hearings, at which time public participants will be unmuted. 3, during the public hearing, the applicant will be invited to present the application, explaining to the commission and others present what is being requested. The meeting host will share all related documents on the screen as needed. In addition, all applications and supporting materials for each application on the agenda have been available through the public meeting calendar page of the town website, www.guilfordct.gov, and also through a direct link on the planning and zoning page. 4, comments of town agencies will be discussed as applicable to the application. There will be clarifying questions from commissioners, and the town planner will direct our attention to any additional items pertinent to the application. 5, after all commissioner questions are exhausted, those who wish to speak in support or in opposition to the application will be asked to come forward, state their name and address for the record, and make a statement. 6, the applicant will then have an opportunity to address any questions or concerns raised by the public or commissioners. 7, once the public hearing is closed, the applicant is free to leave or remain for the balance of the public hearings and the regular meeting, during which the commission will try to reach a decision on each application. Each applicant will be notified in writing as the decision of this commission has a right to appeal to Superior Court if desired. 8, decisions of this meeting are available the day after the meeting by calling the Planning and Zoning Department at 203-453-8039 or by emailing planning.zoning@guilfordct.gov after 9 a.m. 9, all actions taken on applications tonight by the commission will be by roll call. All commissioners and staff will identify themselves for the record before speaking. Seated this evening are the following members who will please identify themselves. Kevin Clark.
Here.
Bill Freeman.
Here.
Is Ted Sands?
Here.
Roger Joyce.
Here.
Sean Cosgrove.
Here.
And I am Scott Edmund, Chair. Alternate present is Bob Harrington.
Hello.
Bob, you're going to be seated tonight because Philip Johnson's not here.
All right.
And staff present is Ann Hartson, Town Planner. This meeting will be recorded via the Zoom platform and made available on the town website for viewing. I would entertain a motion to open public hearing.
So moved.
Thank you, Ted. Second from Sean. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. First item on the agenda is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 text amendments that we are not quite ready to actually review and vote on. So I would entertain a motion to table those to our next meeting, Ann. Is that the
Yes.
plan?
I'll make
so-
Table. Oh, sorry, who got that one? That was Roger. Thank you. Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Sean. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, the ayes have it.
Okay, Mr. Chair, the next item on our agenda is 17 Benton's Knoll, map 8, lot 2417, zone R5 and PRD. The applicant is Michael Martocci of Poolscape Pool and Spa. The owner is John Frankie. This is the modification of the special permit for Benton's Knoll to allow a new 12 by 16 in-ground pool and landscaping.
All right, who do we have here speaking for the applicant?
I will unmute.
You're
Yep,
muted.
you have to unmute there,
You're
sir.
muted.
There
Sorry.
you go.
How about now?
Yep, you're all set.
Awesome. Thank you. Mike from Poolscapes. I'm here to discuss the in-ground pool on 17 Benton's Knoll.
Do we have a plan to look at, Ann or Mike?
Yep. I will find mine.
Awesome.
Mike, do you want to take us through it?
Sure. We have 12 by 16, which is a smaller size pool. Going in, it's a rectangular pool, going to be 4 feet deep. I don't know if you guys can see the elevations here. Well, I'll get to that in a minute. It is going on the side of the property for a couple of reasons, mainly because there's really a hardship in the back. We have the wetlands line and there's no significant room back there to put in an in-ground pool. On the other side of the property, we have their septic system. So it cannot go over there. So this is really the only location that the pool can go in. There will be, when we're doing this pool, we are going to haul the materials off-site while we excavate. All of them, because we have done projects on Benton's Knoll already, and past experience, the soils aren't great. So we are going to bring in our own sandy material for our backfill, which is basically 3 feet all the way around the pool. The filter equipment will be, you could see it here down on the back side. It's going to be a cartridge system, a small cartridge system. There won't be any backwashing, so there won't be any discharge because as you can see, the wetlands review line is about 15 feet away. So there won't be any discharge from the filter system. There is an auto cover on this pool. There will be fencing as well. But there is an auto cover because currently you don't, that's currently covering your fencing, but I think there is going to be both there on this project. It's a vinyl line pool, LED lighting. Access is going to be through the front yard here. We obviously can't, there's plenty of room for access in and out to truck the material away while we're doing the excavation. It's a steel frame pool again with a vinyl liner. There's a concrete base. It's not a gunite pool. As you can see, it has full length steps going across. Roughly about 5 feet deep at its deepest point in the deeper end.
All right, thanks, Mike. What were you involved in the design of all the landscaping as well, or are you just involved in the pool?
The pool, just involved in the pool, but Danielle is here also with Torsen Stone, who helped design the project. And
Hi,
she can answer some-
Danielle here.
There she is.
Hi. Thank you.
She can help with some of the layout questions and design questions as well.
Okay. Yeah, I guess, Ann, could you just briefly explain for us typically there would be setbacks on properties and whatnot. Can you briefly explain, make sure all the commissioners are aware of what makes Benton's Knoll unique in this way?
Yeah, so Benton's Knoll is a planned residential development, so the land is held in common via a homeowners association. So people don't actually own individual parcels. So in the original application, these I'll call them pseudo lot lines. They're not legal lot lines. were demarcated for each individual residential unit. The homeowners association has a whole series of bylaws that govern changes exterior to the houses, which I'm sure others will talk about later, but there are no actual interior lot lines within the development. So all setbacks and bulk standards and things like that are taken from the overall parcel, which is a very different and a much larger piece of land.
Hey, Ann, this is Sean. So what is the specific modification of the special permit?
We are making a modification to allow a pool. There is precedent on this project in particular, for whatever reason, I can't really speak to the history, that individual pools that were not built with the individual units each have come back as individual applicants to request the ability to install pools. That was part of the original conditions of approval. And as you know, this is like the second one in 2 months, I think we've heard. And I think there will be others coming as well.
It's yeah, that, as she mentioned, that's part of the original special permit for the entire neighborhood.
I think there's 4 or 5 already. We put in one a year ago, and I think there's one under construction and 4 others currently on Benton's Knoll in-ground pools.
Yeah. Let me just let's see.
So
Have you given- yeah.
all these pools have gone in, have not required, so refresh my memory, I think that was just mentioned by Ann. Is there an HOA?
There is.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, and so this just comes before planning and zoning. It doesn't have to go back to the HOA at all.
Well, it depends on their
Oh.
bylaws. It depends on their bylaws. They might have an architectural review.
Okay,
That totally depends on them.
I believe there are folks who will testify to the HOA in a bit. I will just say that our decision-making capabilities have no bearing on the HOA and vice versa.
Let me just share real quick so that we can get a view of, let's see, is it sharing?
Yep.
There we go. So this is just the aerial view so everyone can see. Part of the reason why I believe on the original special permit, they had this stipulation for coming back about pools is because everything is super tight, right? So all these houses are right up tight against each other. This right here, number 17, is the one that's here tonight. And yeah, that's why.
I have a question, Scott, if you don't
Sure.
mind. Kevin Clark with the commission. Ian, you said, let me make sure I heard you right. You said that our decision has no bearing on what the HOA decides? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I mean, they're an independent body, so
Right.
they can make their own decisions.
Right.
Well,
So
certainly
does
if
that
we,
mean, so let's just
No.
say, argument's sake,
Go ahead.
hypothetical, we approved this tonight. We
Yeah.
already know how the HOA feels. We have the correspondence. So if they stuck with their decision that they didn't feel a pool was necessary here, would that make our decision in favor of moot?
no.
No.
It would-
The
would-
applicant needs approval of both bodies in order to construct, but in terms of the statutes that guide this commission and the town of Guilford statutes, it's a strange situation where we would be able to sign off on building permits, but they wouldn't have, in that scenario, they wouldn't have the permission of the HOA to do the work.
It would be subject to the bylaws of the HOA.
Right.
Well,
So they-
refresh my memory. Didn't we have one of these applications a couple of months ago?
Yes.
Yes,
But the HOA didn't come out against that, I don't believe.
correct.
Well,
And-
one of the
and-
differences, sorry, one of the differences too was that the pool was in the back as opposed to the side. obviously, in this case, the lot is pretty tight and doesn't actually have a backyard really.
Are they removing trees to create room for the pool?
There, well, so no, if you remember the aerial, here, I'll put it up again.
Oh, it's right there. Okay, that's the. open
So
space. Okay.
That's the-
there, yeah, there's no, this is a new neighborhood, right? So there's no old growth trees in these lots. So basically what you see that's cut out of the trees, that's the lot
Mhm, mhm.
effectively.
Got
So yeah, this area on the side here, that's what they're proposing.
Thank you, Scott.
Could you bring the plan back up again? And I
Sure.
did have a question for, I'm sorry, I missed your name from, Torsten and Stone Garden.
It's Danielle.
Danielle, sorry, thank you.
Sure.
What do you because this is a pretty unique situation, what do you have proposed along the quote unquote property line?
So where you see the pool to the left of it on the side yard, we are proposing a privacy fence, which is a little uncommon for Benton's Knoll. Most of the fencing in there is like black aluminum pool fencing. But since it is a side yard application, we would like to see a privacy fence put in there for both the neighbors and the homeowner, John.
How
Basically,
tall is a privacy fence?
6 feet.
And this is an opaque fence?
It is.
It looks like it's at one elevation, or does it slope with along
It's
the pool side?
it's all one elevation back
So
there.
is it's at the high end, so by the time you get to the pool, it's gonna be what, like 8-9 feet high?
No, it would step down with the design, so
Okay.
it's a 6-foot fence all the way along.
All right,
Since
so
it's not for protection against the pool, because there's an auto cover, we can just do the 6 feet, and it doesn't matter if it steps down.
In the past, as I recall, there were issues with neighbors across the street from light pollution, et cetera. What's being done to mitigate that in this case?
Light pollution from the pool area.
Yeah,
Yes.
what are you proposing for lights in this design?
We are working with RLI Electric. I believe John has more information on what's going to be happening with the lighting, but there is some gentle landscape lighting. There's no floodlights or, lighting going on, projecting into the air or anything off the house that would be disruptive to neighbors. Plus, again, we've got that 6-foot fence to kind of diffuse what's going on in there.
It looks like you have a fence across the back as well. Is that a privacy fence or is that a metal picket fence?
That is also a privacy fence. We encased the entire area in privacy fence for this portion.
So one of the reasons, hi, I'm John, the owner. One of the reasons for that was to, number one, hide the pool equipment. And number two, there's a bunch of wildlife back here. It's like bobcats, coyotes. So just trying to keep them out of the area.
Mr. Chair, if I may, the application doesn't mention anything about lighting. We don't have a lighting plan, and we don't have any other plans besides just this one.
Yeah,
So-
the lighting plan is very rudimentary. It'll probably only be solar lights or low voltage lighting, but it's probably going to be solar lighting. There's really
Right.
not a need for a lot of light in the area.
That's fine. I'm just making the point that we do not have any information about lighting in the record. And if you are proposing lighting, we would need a lighting plan.
Okay, even if they were not, even if they were solar lights that were simply, stuck in the ground.
Yep, we have a lighting ordinance we need to make sure you're compliant with.
Okay.
Hmm.
We can get you that.
And that, John, that's also because this is, I mean, again, it's a strange situation. This is actually technically a special permit, which means those requirements are a bit more stringent. All right, any other questions from commissioners before we open up for public comment?
Nope.
Ted's hiding.
Nope.
All right. All right, we'll open up for public comment now. If you if you want to raise your hand through the Zoom platform, or you can under your camera, and we'll see you wave. I see Jim Ian.
Yep, it's actually
Your name and
pronounced Ian.
address. Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah,
Can
it's
you,
okay.
State your name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, so Jim Ian at 19 Benton's Knoll. I'm the immediate neighbor to 17 Benton's Knoll. And I'm here to voice my opposition to the plan submitted by 17 Benton's Knoll. You know, Scott, you just brought up the aerial, and I don't know if we need to see it again, but to your comment, it's a very, very small area. So, my concern as the immediate neighbor, there's obviously, it's up to interpretation and some confusion around these unit boundary lines, but the fence will be right on my boundary and John's boundary, and the pool is about 4 feet from that fence. This whole project is going to be, I haven't measured it out, but based on plan, it looks to be 15 or 20 feet from my home. So we're talking about a very, very small area that we're trying to shoehorn a pool, a pergola, patio, fencing. And, my immediate concern is that this does not go, with the look and feel of Benton's Knoll. The comment was made about the fencing that we're currently using. All of the neighbors have these black open pool fences. I understand if this project were to occur that privacy would be best, but I certainly know that the board, based on the letter that's on file now with you guys, has issue specifically with the fencing and other elements of this project. I think if we looked at that space, we're going to find that this is incredibly intrusive to my property, and it's going to impact my family and certainly my property value. The fence right now, you can't see it on the plan, runs right through a bed and trees that were planted by myself and the former neighbor about a year or two ago. So there are trees that from my
see, like that.
Go ahead, continue, please. Oh, you got muted somehow, Jim. Hey, Jim, you got muted somehow. You want to unmute again?
All right, I think maybe everybody got muted when somebody was chuckling, but in any case, it looks as though those trees would need to be taken out if this plan were to be executed. So the space again is very, very tight. I think, my concern going back to when I moved into the neighborhood 5 or 6 years, 6 years ago now, is that the comment was made about pools that were allowed. And, we certainly should do some research on this, but the town had stated based on the development that 3 pools would be allowed in the neighborhood. And that was the permit. You're talking now about special permits that need to be granted. And those were to be built with the development of the homes for whatever reason. Well, we've now seen 2 more pools go in and now a 3rd. Now, my concern, and this is nothing that I don't really know John well, it's not personal, but this is a side yard. This is very different than anything else that has gone on at Benton's Knoll. people who have had the space to be able to put pools in their backyards, they've been able to retain the privacy, the look, have not invaded wetlands, and have put fencing in place that's aesthetically pleasing. If we look at this project being on the side yard, I'm gonna pull into my home and be staring at a 6-foot white privacy fence just feet away from where I enter my home. And I have issue with that. I'm concerned about that, and that's why I was here tonight to make those statements. I know that there's a letter from the board on file that has not approved the plan. And certainly my understanding is most attributes of this plan need board approval. So that's where we sit today. I'll take any questions anybody has.
No, thank you.
I have a question for
Sure,
Scott.
Ted. Yes, Ted.
It
Thanks, Jim.
seems to me that if this is a normal homeowners association, and I live in a condo, so I have some experience with these things. Even if we approve it, if the homeowners association does not approve it, the thing can't go forward. So I think we've got sort of the cart and the horse here mixed up.
That was basically the question I asked.
Yeah, I mean, why are we trying to adjudicate something that, I mean, my feeling is that the homeowner ought to come back to us and say, all right, here's the deal that I cut with the homeowners association, and will you approve it P and Z? I think we're doing this backwards.
Well, technically we're not, obviously they're two separate pieces, but certainly, and especially considering this is a special permit and the requirements involved in approving a special permit, certainly it would be helpful if everybody, the neighbor, specifically the neighbor next door, but also just the neighborhood in general, was along for the ride. But I think at this point it's mostly going to be a question of for the applicant, does the applicant want us to go forward with voting on this, or does the applicant want us to table it so they have an opportunity to look at opportunities to redesign? From my background, just knowing and seeing those lot, there's not a ton that can get done, but perhaps there can be some time discussion with the neighbor. You know what I mean? But that's kind of where we are in terms of the process. Is either the applicant wants us to just move forward with decision making and voting, or we can table it and he can try to talk to his neighbors. So John, do you have an opinion on that?
Well, can I just interject for a second?
Sure,
I
Ann.
just want to remind you that we are still in a public hearing and we haven't
Yep.
asked for any other testimony. So
Yep. No,
might be getting ahead of ourselves.
I'm there with you. But I guess so, John, you can think about that. Any other any other
I have a
public
question.
comments or folks that want to speak on this application? I'm not seeing anybody else with their camera on. Raise your hand if you.
I have a question if I may.
Yep, go for it, Bob.
Just to help make sure I understand the process. Because basically if we were to approve this, say, and then it goes and then the HOA says no, John would have to come back with a different plan and potentially to do a different application. And
If he was correct, if they said no and he decided to try for something else and change his plan, yes, he would have to come back for a modification, assuming that the modification was substantially different than the current application. Yes.
and so that's time and money for the application, yes?
correct.
Yeah.
So yeah, it seems to me like, in my opinion, it might be better for John to find something that he knows that the HOA will agree with before coming back to us, because it's less risk for him. Just making sure I understand it to see where that risk lies for him.
Thanks, Bob. It looked like we didn't have any other comments from neighbors or anything. Like was mentioned, we did get a letter from the HOA. I'll open it back up to John and see what you're feeling at this moment.
Sure. I do have a presentation, actually, should take about less than 5 minutes.
Sure.
So this presentation would probably be for both you and the board. I'm actually disabled on screen sharing.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and can take care of that for you.
Okay.
Okay, try it now.
So are you guys,
It might take a second to load up.
are you
Here you
guys
go.
seeing this?
It's starting to load up. 1 second.
Okay.
All right, you're all set. Go ahead.
Okay. So, again, I just have a presentation and I appreciate, the time. Just a quick thing on, the timeline, of this project, and the response, the details, and then some perspectives on the project. Hopefully this will answer some questions. Let's see. I don't know why it's not going forward. Okay, so I actually did submit this a much more extensive plan to the homeowners association. You can see a copy of this email that I sent to Andrew Smullian, who is one of the board members. I clearly pointed out that the pool would be in limited view. I asked what I needed to do. I asked for any more information, and the response that I got was from Andrew and also copying the other 2 members of the board. It says, John, thanks for sending this. This is between you and the town, nothing further from the association's perspective. So that is the only the only written communication I have gotten from the board. So right now, from my perspective, they have approved the project.
That's not the only written documentation you've received, though, because we've gotten a letter in our mailboxes with a detailed commentary on the job. So
Thanks.
that
Sure.
email might have happened,
Thanks, Jim.
but there's obviously been more.
Understood, Jim. We're
Contribute.
letting him have it.
Yep,
Show
go ahead.
his presentation. Yep.
Okay, thank you. So since the one and only written response I got on March 25th, no board member has contacted me either verbally or in writing on the subject to say anything about changing their decision. Only one other resident from unit number 20 contacted me verbally, and her only comment was about her experiences getting the pool approved. A copy of a letter dated April 25th addressed to Anne, signed by the same individuals that gave me the approval on the email, was put in my mailbox on the afternoon of April 29th, about 48 hours ago. The letter was not sent by US mail, and the person who left it did not identify themselves. The letter and the email correspondence are in direct contradiction. The letter was not processed according to the rules of the association or to the standard conflict resolution. And so I asked that it not be included as evidence in the hearing. It's not an appropriate letter. It was not done correctly according to the bylaws.
If I may, Mr. Frankie, we are not mitigating or otherwise enforcing your own HOA rules. We are operating under the rules of the Town of Guilford zoning regulations, which is an entirely different thing. If people submit letters to the record, that becomes part of the records. So we're not going to be playing go-between between you and the HOA.
I guess I'm just asking for the point of approval or not approving. I believe Ted gave the question of, well, should we approve this? Well, I've got an approval already from the board. And, and nothing that says otherwise. I understand you're not a go-between, but this is the presentation I will be giving to the board as well. And I believe it should resolve everything. I also, Mike from Poolscape emailed me a copy of a letter from Mr. Ian voicing his objection. At no time before the letter was sent did he contact me either verbally or in writing to discuss his objections, hear my perspective, or attempt to resolve anything. So
With all due respect to that last comment, and then certainly John can finish if he has more.
I really
but,
would like to
Yeah.
finish my presentation if that's okay.
Jim,
If
Yeah,
that's
let's
all
finish
right,
the-
I mean,
We'll finish the
I-
presentation first, Jim, all
and
right?
then you guys can question me on whatever you want. So, the next
Mr.
slide
Timmy.
is just showing, currently 4 houses have pools at Benton's Knoll. A 5th pool is under construction up on unit 20. With an average unit land area of a 1/4 acre, it is both expected and common for units to see onto patios, pools, driveways of the other person. This is the proposed pool in, this is, here it is on the plan. You can see where it is compared to unit number 19. You can also see where unit number 20's pool is compared to unit number 19. Equidistant on the other side, on the side. Again, with my project, the pool is located as far back as possible. A privacy fence is included, so it won't be visible to any neighbor. As Mike said, it's the only one possible. Unit number 20 has received and is currently constructing a pool and patio, which is equidistant and has more exposure to number 19, which I will demonstrate. If unit number 20 has received approval, there's really no justification for the board to deny unit number 17, and I will be sending this presentation to them as well. This is an aerial shot. This is current. You can actually see where the pool is being constructed on unit number 20, and you can see where the proposal is for this unit. All the pools are about the same distance from the road. So although it's not technically a backyard, it is all equidistant. The line of sight from the pool to the neighbor's pool at number 19 is almost non-existent. The line of sight from the pool to the other pool is quite evident. This is the side of unit number 17 that faces the neighbor's unit number 19. It's not a particularly pretty view. It's got Bilco doors and a generator. This side of the house does have a lot of windows though, and if you see the one that I've circled, again, I'm going to show you the view from this window, which is the green area. So this is what this is what the unit looks out at from my window. So this is the view from that window. You can see where the proposed pool area is. You can see the proposed pergola area. From my window, I can clearly see unit 19's 14 by 16 foot pavilion, as well as a portion of the patio and fencing. I can also see the driveway. It's not particularly attractive, but as I said before, the units are tight, like as everyone has said. There's also a red bobcat in the corner there. You can see that, which is constructing the other pool at unit number 20. There is something missing from this photo, however, and I'm guessing one of you has figured it out already, but what's missing from this photo is there are no windows facing the area where I propose to put the pool in. There is little to no visual impact from inside the unit. So as Jim said, if he drives into his driveway, I drive into my driveway and I see his driveway and I see the other neighbor's driveway. But when he goes into his house or goes out on his patio, there's almost no visual adverse effects. The privacy fence would limit that even more. I understand the fencing that's normally put in. I would assume that a privacy fence would be wanted to make sure there was no view between the two properties. This is the type of pergola I was thinking of putting in. It's much more decorative and non-obtrusive versus a pavilion style. This would be the view of the fence from the road. But Diana has actually, there's going to be plantings in front of it, so it won't even be as visible here. But from what I see, I don't see it being any very obtrusive or not out of place. Again, I wish we had talked about this. I wish the board had talked to me. I wish Mr. Ian had talked to me. Again, here's the I showed this view before. This morning I took a photo from the red dot. This is actually on the road behind the Benton's Knoll. This is on Sachem's Head Road. And if you're looking up from the road, what you see is this is the side of unit number 19. This is the opposite side that faces me with plenty of windows. This is unit 20 to the left, and you can see where the pool is being built. It's right in the view of unit number 19. You can, where there are no windows on the side facing me, there's plenty of windows and part of the deck or patio facing. So again, no one came to me and wanted to talk to me personally, but I did get a copy of a letter that said this project would be intrusive, aesthetically unappealing, and will impact property value. To which I'm saying calling it intrusive is factually incorrect, because the project goes right to the property line. Actually, Danielle says it's 1 foot inside the property line.
Yes.
So it's not intrusive. It's not violating another person's space or privacy. Fences are routinely installed on property lines, or in this case, boundary lines. The proposed fence provides privacy for all parties. And remember, again, we're on 1/4 acre. And it's been demonstrated that this project can barely be seen from unit number 19, and definitely less so than the unit 20 project, which is currently under construction and has been approved. So aesthetically unappealing, again, aesthetics are a matter of opinion. I've contracted with Torsen to perform the design, and I thought we came up with a very attractive space. Unit number 19 has about 2,000 square foot of patio compared to the 1,000 I'm proposing to put in. And it has a 32 by 14 pool compared to the 10 by 12 I'm putting in. So again, I'm finding it difficult to understand how someone could say that they find pools and patios other than aesthetically pleasing, since they have probably the largest one in the complex, and that's what they look out on all the time. I will show you an example of something that is aesthetically unappealing. Impacting property value, I'm not familiar with Mr. Ian's experience. I'm not sure he holds a realtor's license. I'm not sure he has other insight into property valuations, and indicating that they will be impacted. I'm not sure if he is referring to the fact that it might raise the property value, since unit number 17 would probably be raised in value. So not really sure what to say to that. And finally, there's been talk about how intrusive and how terrible my project would be. This is the view from the road again that I had showed you, showing the pool, showing the side of the house. And in the red circle here, I would certainly make sure I would not make anything visible like this to any of the neighbors. So the reason why I went through this with you before the board is, again, someone had said that they, why should we approve this if the board won't? And the reason being that I don't think the board would be able to deny the pool application, since they already approved unit number 20, which has the same conditions, or actually worse conditions, for the only unit that is, there's only one unit in the whole complex that has made any kind of complaint about about this proposal. So that is my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions now that anyone has.
Well, my only comment, John, is that your only exaggeration was that it would just take 5 minutes.
Sorry about that. I apologize for that. I am long-winded.
John, for some reason your video cut out. If you meant to or not, I don't know. Yeah, you can stop sharing there. Yeah, Jim, before I get to you, any other comments or questions from commissioners?
The only comment I have is that I think we have to go back to the fact that it appears that the applicant would like us to move forward, and I don't think we really have any jurisdiction over what the HOA does or the neighbor does.
Well, so
but it's-
the comment, yeah, based on the HOA, we don't have the bylaws in front of us. That's not part of the application, right? Like some bylaws are have an architectural review committee that you have to get approved. Some don't. We don't know in this case whether it is. So we can't really make decisions based off of what their HOA is and what the bylaws are for the HOA.
Right, but Scott, a special permit requires, if we do not decide to waive it, requires 2 hearings.
Yeah, we haven't been doing that. We switched that rule. That's
I know,
not the
My question is, when does the HOA meet again?
typically HOAs have very irregular schedules.
So should we inquire as to when the HOA meets again?
The HOA doesn't meet as far as I understand.
John just moved in. I've been here 6 years. The HOA meets about twice a year. But if something's required, like John would like to present this to the HOA, I'm sure they would accommodate him.
I would advise that you cannot consider the HOA in your deliberations. You have to stick to the special permit criteria and the zoning regs. The HOA is an entirely separate issue from what this commission is dealing with.
That's
Right.
tough.
Which brings me to my point that I was going to make, is that we really need to just look at whether it fits in with our previous approvals in the subdivision.
Mhm.
I mean,
respect.
I
I really don't want to, I don't, personally, I find it ironic that people with pools are then saying things about people that want pools. So I don't want to, our commission, I don't believe should be involved in that. I think we should take it on face value that we've allowed other pools in there, and that's, this person wants a pool, and if they want to go forward with it and work things out, then that's their prerogative.
Sure. So Jim, you got addressed.
Yeah, I'll try to
directly
make just some
in his
quick
comments, so
comments.
just go ahead, quick comments, please.
And comment on things that are just going to impact the board and your vote tonight if you move forward with that. First, John, if you increase the property value, that would be great. I do not have a realtor's license. But with respect to us having a conversation, and I'm happy to meet after this for sure, is that I came home from being out of the country after March 25th, and there was a big, or prior to March 25th, and there was a big hole. So typically it would be the person doing the work right next to their neighbor, where trucks were driving across my driveway and fragments and dirt were there. Just out of respect for my property, you should have the conversation with me. But in any case, guys, the only thing that probably will impact that, was quickly spoke about in the plan was not just the pool. All right. The pool is set back a little bit, but again, side yard. That's what's very different about any other pool in the neighborhood, is it's in the side yard. And that's serious. We can talk about windows or not. I'm a busy guy, like everybody's here. You're busy. I didn't get on here tonight just to, hear myself speak. I find the pool on the other side, 20, being in the backyard, not being something I see when it's entry to my home, as less intrusive. But anyways, you've got the pool, but you also have the pergola. We haven't really talked about an 8 by 10 foot structure that is also in front of the pool. And then, again, you'll work through this, but up to interpretation when we talk about boundary lines and the white fence. These are two different things that will be worked through between, you guys as well as the executive board of Benton's Knoll. But you know, the letter's on file. I know their strong opinion on fencing because it's happened before. Several years ago, somebody was putting up a fence and
Sure.
the board would not approve any fence other than that black picket, you know, open fence.
Right.
But in any
Well,
case,
again, that'll be something for the HOA.
yeah, so in any case, just the project in its totality and the fact that we're in a very, very small space in a side yard is what causes my concern and my wife's concern, who's on with us today as well.
All right.
I'll turn it back over to you.
Scott, I got a question for you.
Me?
Yep.
With the fact that this application currently doesn't have a lighting plan, would that fact alone warrant tabling for another month? Or not necessarily?
What would our town planner's recommendation be
I-
there?
You know, that fact alone would make me suggest that tabling might be a good option. It would also give these folks the chance to communicate with each other, perhaps
Exactly.
adjust plans and come back without having to submit another application with a whole nother application fee.
Yep, that's,
Mike, Martochi, it seemed like you had a hand raised.
Um,
Oh, you muted yourself.
You're muted.
Yeah, you muted yourself. There
Sorry
you go.
about that. Mr. Ian Ian, I'm sorry. Just mentioned something about a big hole. I just want everyone to know we did not start anything. That I believe was some permitted propane work that John was doing earlier.
My point was just, he wanted me to communicate, but I came home to this job already
Right,
started.
and that's fine and good. I just want the board to know that we have not started any construction over there. That's just so there's no confusion. That's all.
noted.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. So I would entertain, do we have any other, no other comments from the public? Seems like,
He muted himself.
any other final
you.
comments? Any other final
Martochi
comment,
wants-
John? Sorry, Ann, what was that?
Mr. Martochi had his hand up.
So, you guys discussed possibly tabling it because of a lighting plan, which is landscape lighting. And I don't know if this is possible just for the possibility of timing as far as in-ground pool construction. You know, is this something where the possible pool could be approved and then an after the fact lighting, low voltage lighting plan could be approved? Is that?
Yeah, fortunately not, considering
Okay.
this is a special permit, which ends up being a modification, which is one of the most stringent in the town. So,
Gotcha.
there's lots of requirements of things that need to be done.
Understood.
All right, any final comment, John, or?
No, not from me.
right.
I think at this point, I believe I do have a lighting plan. It's just I never got back to the guy, so I can pop that onto the site, but that's the only thing I can say about that.
Okay, thank you. So commissioners, I think we're at the point where we can either discuss tabling or discuss closing public hearing on this item.
I think we ought to table it.
I agree.
Is that a motion, Ted?
Yes, I move that we table this until we have the lighting plan.
I second that.
Second from Sean. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? All right, we'll go to a vote. Motion to table. Bob Harrington,
Yes.
Roger Joyce,
Yes.
Kevin Clark,
Yes,
Ted Sands,
Yes,
Bill Freeman,
Yes.
Sean Cosgrove,
Yes.
and I'll also vote yes.
Roger Joyce.
I voted.
he was
I got
he
it.
already voted.
Yeah, I didn't move him to the end yet. All right. So we're tabled to the next meeting, which is what date, Ann?
June 5th.
Thank you. So at the very least, work on the site plan, with the lighting, and highly recommend discussions with your neighbors. Thank you. And we'll move on to the next item.
Yes, Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, I think it makes sense to move on to the special request for consideration for 66 High Street. If we could skip over the site plan for that for a moment.
Yeah, we're putting us into our regular meeting now, right?
Yes.
All right. What-
So let me explain what's happening here. First, I'll read the item. So there's a request for consideration for 66 High Street, map 32, lot 60, zone R3. The applicant is Michael P. Harkin for Harkin Engineering. The owner is 66 High Street, Guilford LLC. And the request to consider special permit modification without a public hearing per section 9.4.G.6. So let me explain. Under our new zoning ordinance, section 9.4.G.6 reads as follows. A special permit may be amended or modified in like manner as provided above for granting of a special permit, except that amendments which shall be found to be of a minor nature or which do not materially alter the special permit as determined by the commission may be authorized with commission approval only without another public hearing. So you may want to let Mr. Harkin give you a little presentation about what the special permit that he's seeking contains, but what they're effectively asking is for a special permit modification without a noticed public hearing component. And I would advise you, as you are considering this request, to think about how you as a commission would define what a minor changes of a minor nature or which do not material alter the special permit. What that phrase means.
One
And
other thing,
I would-
Sean, one other thing before you ask your question, I just want to also note that these applications are in. There are applications that are in. So in the event that we decided that it was minor and it did not need to be a modification to a special permit, then I believe Mr. Harkin is prepared to present the applications here today. So just FYI for everyone.
Yeah,
Go
and
ahead,
I would procedurally, if I may, I would ask that you consider this request first because there's also a site plan and a coastal site plan application which are paired with the special permit modification. If you require a hearing, that requires public notice, that requires notice in the paper and notice to neighbors. And none of that has been done for this. So if you say, just so to be very clear, if you say yes, you'll consider this without a public hearing, then they can't go forward tonight because that noticing needs to happen.
Even though it happens during the regular meeting and not during the public hearing? They haven't been noticed at all?
I noticed in the paper, but the notices to the neighbors have not gone out.
And you still need notices to the neighbors even though it's in a regular meeting and not in a public hearing?
No, the request is noticed as part of a request. It's not
Right.
noticed as a public hearing.
Okay.
And my only comment is that, and I don't want to throw this in your lap, Ann, but, her 9.4 G.6, boy, in terms of a text amendment, can we clean that up? That is absolutely intelligible.
Yeah, there are no definitions of what these things are, so this is your test case, but yes, I agree, we need to clean that up.
I mean, in a document that big, you're gonna run into stuff like this all the time. Bill?
So
But,
if I,
but the point is, when we encounter it, let's address it. You know,
Yeah.
let's just
Yep.
address.
Bill?
and if I understand this correctly, if we determine that this is a minor issue, then we can move forward. And if it's not, then we have to go backwards and have all the neighbors noticed and all that stuff. Is that correct? And get a public hearing.
So is minor defined?
Well, that's what we'll have to come
Hold
up
on,
with.
let me answer the first question. If you determine that you would like this to go forward without a public hearing, it is technically not on the agenda as a regular meeting item, as a special permit modification without a public hearing. So I would suggest that, no, you can't go forward because it wasn't noticed as a modification without a public hearing.
So if someone were to do this in the future, then technically they'd have to put two things, they would have to have you put two things in the agenda. They'd have to
Yeah,
put
I
this.
mean, it's a strange thing because I can't decide ahead of time what you're going to say,
Yeah.
right? And so
Yeah, I
can't-
think,
Yeah,
well, when we're looking at changing the wording based off of what Sean's saying, we should probably make sure we figure out what the process is as well.
right.
If
So
this
let's
is still
discuss
gonna be a
that
thing.
after we've discussed this item, and we'll have but
Yeah.
let this go.
Time being, stay on the straight and narrow.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, Mr. Harkin. This is obviously the first time that we're encountering this, so that's why we had to work through that, make sure everybody understood, but please proceed with your request.
Yep, no, we're just trying to do what we're told and follow the correct procedure as we're going through this. Unfortunately tonight, Marjorie Shansky, our attorney, can't be with us, but she's gave me a list of items that we can speak upon legally. But let me just get into it, and you can see actually how minor this whole thing is and what's transpired. Officially for the record, my name is Michael Harkin. I'm a professional engineer and principal of Harkin Engineering, located at 78 Wolf Hollow Lane in the town of Killingworth, Connecticut. Again, here tonight on behalf of my client, 66 High Street Guilford LLC, who subsequently is Kenny Horton, for his project, which is a approval of a dog park at 66 High Street. I think everybody's familiar with 66 High Street. It's a kind of a larger project that's been going on for years. As many of you know, I wasn't the original design engineer on the project. Luke's Associates was. I've taken over the project about, I would say, a couple years ago. George Crawl was still town planner then. So this dog park has been actually operational since George has been in. And I can go through the drawings and go through the history, but I'll do it verbally and then I'll pop up the drawings and it'll all kind of make sense and how this came about. So when the first building was completed and the second building was being built, again, there's 3 buildings on High Street. So the first was done, the second was on its way to be done. They fenced in an area towards the rear of the property that was a staging area while building 2 is getting built. So they had a large fenced in area, which was almost in the location of where the detention basin was supposed to go. The detention basin wasn't built yet. And as the building progressed, they were taking the materials out. That fenced in area was basically vacant. So the neighbors haphazardly just started using it as a dog park. They would open the gate, let their dogs run in there, and then, try to collect them at the end of the day. The grade was kind of steep over there, so they'd let their dogs in there, and then they'd have to wait for the dogs to come back to them because they couldn't go down there and chase them to get them back, is virtually what was happening. So when George was there, we brought this to his attention that, hey, the amenity of the dog park was not approved on the original 66 High Street. But the neighbors and the HOA there want a dog park. And he basically said, hey, as the project progresses, we're far from having this over, we're years out, then we'll go through the process of formally getting a dog park approved on there. Obviously George left, same thing, Jamie came in, went over it. There's so much going on at High Street, obviously, when it's being built, that everybody's aware of what's transpiring and happening there. We try to bring it to everybody's attention, so we brought it to Jamie's attention. Same thing, when it gets towards the end, the detention basin has to be built, come back in and officially get it approved. Hence Jamie left. So we have interim town planners come in. Same thing, big spiel. Then Ann came in and we did the same thing with Ann. And with Ann, the time is that in the summer, they had to build the detention basin because the third building was finished. So now it's the time to bring forward legitly the dog park. And I'll go over the plans. It's actually so small of a project. I mean, I would say I went out there. Janice Plasiak, the town engineer, told me to go out there and take a look. It's almost already in, basically, and I'll get through that in our drawings. So, and if you can allow me to share my screen,
Yeah,
and what I'll do is I'll go through the process real quick of the
but that's my screen. Okay, try, see if you can get in.
Okay, let me see if I can pop a drawing here. Bear with me, guys.
While you're pulling this up, does this involve the wetlands at all?
No, it's already in an area that's already been pre-approved for disturbance. So it's in an area that requires no more disturbance. It's directly adjacent to the existing parking lot. See here.
And it's already fenced?
It is not fenced, no, sir. We didn't put the fence or anything in, but what had transpired is when we dug out the detention basin, that we stockpiled the material. Just let me know when you can see the plan. It's a little slow over here.
Yeah, it's still loading.
I will let you guys know that I have pictures that Janice took of the existing site afterwards, if you want to take a look. The
Yep.
work's pretty much done,
Yeah.
I would say, yeah.
So can everybody see the plan that's on?
No.
No.
No?
I can share the plan from my computer if that's helpful.
Yeah, why don't you just do that for now?
Okay.
So Mike, so the chain link fence that Kevin McGee mentions is not the same fence that Sean's talking about.
No, it is not. So
Okay.
there was a large scale fence that was put at the edge of the clearing limits. Back when the project's inception virtually occurred. And they used that as a stockpile area. So what had transpired is right when they started construction, they had the limit of disturbance staked out. And then they had it basically cleared to that. Everything was grass sodded. They were basically using it as a staging area. Okay, so everything that you see in that dark gray area isn't being touched. Okay, that is the detention basin that was approved. All the work in that area was approved. And you can see that there's a little kind of like triangular piece towards the tidal wetlands. That is an existing walkway that we had to modify in order to get the dog park in. So, and if you could put your cursor on the dog park itself area, that's the area of the dog park, directly adjacent to the existing driveway and parking area. Additionally, with that being said, we hogged out the material for the detention basin to make it exactly what it was supposed to be. From there, we stockpiled the fill off to the left side where the dog park, where we're showing it. When it got down to late November of last year, they had a basically choice. They had a choice to either remove the material and come back in for the dog park and then bring the material back in, or leave the material there and basically spread it out. Instead of having a pile, they would have to put the correct erosion controls around it, which is basically silt fence, hay bales, and then hydroseed it. Well, you know, Kenny's selling multi-million-dollar units over there. His choice was to, hey, let's just plow it down to the grade that we need and let's sod it. So come November, that's what they did. They put it down, they sodded it. And it was always, hey, if for some reason the commission doesn't want let us have a dog park, we can always take it out. It was no big deal. We formally submitted the application. I started designing this, the finished product that you see here, in December, in January. You know, we submitted the plans, went over it with Ann, went over it with Janice, you know, at staff meetings and stuff. And then, literally, we went to a staff meeting, I believe, last week or 2 weeks ago. And then Janice had called me like 2 days later and said, Mike, you got to go out there. Most of the plan is basically built. It's there. So, you know, obviously I went out there and she's right. Most of it's there. This has been knocked down, But what was done prior that I wouldn't know about is all the landscaping was already put in. All that work was done. They actually put in the retaining wall here and created this parking area. We created 3 parking spaces for the simple fact on my plan that the people in unit 1, they can drive over here, park and let their dogs in. The other item is, you know, Janice had brought up is, hey, can we do this without leaving the fill there? Well, really can't, because it goes back to the same principle as the people walking into the gate of the dog park. They can't physically get their dogs because of the steep slope over there. They can't go down and get them. So what we did is we designed the dog park to be at the same elevation as the driveway, so people can just walk in there, let their dogs go. And then obviously the top area would be fenced. And people have asked, why is it 30 by 60, such an odd size? Well, that's all the material that was hogged out of the detention basin. It's not like we're trucking fill in to create this. We've already been approved to remove the fill and create the detention basin. We stockpiled it and just spread it out. And that's the size that creates, you know, a 30 by 60 based on the amount of fill. And additionally, there was a couple extra stockpiles that were on the site that were incorporated into it. So, you know, we're not going any further than what was previously approved to be put in.
Well, so,
Yeah.
so just want to make sure I understand. You're saying that the parking area with the retaining wall was not originally on the original approval?
It was not. So it's part of this approval.
It's part of this application?
Correct.
But you know, say, Michael, that this dog park is de facto basically done.
Yes and no.
If
It is,
you would
it
like
is
to
to
see
a
the
point,
photograph,
Ann can
Yeah.
break out and show you the pictures, but for the most part, you know, everything's sodded, everything's there. It's been there. This part has been there that she's showing since November, because it was a spoil area from the detention basin.
Is all that fill from the excavations?
Yes. We
Um,
just didn't truck it off. And we
the other
didn't truck it
question-
off because we knew
right.
it was going to come in for an application.
The other question, Mike, was based off the special permit application originally approved, what was supposed to happen with excess soil from the site?
I believe it was supposed to be, well, there wasn't anything about excess soil. It was always believed that, hey, there's excess soil, it has to be removed to get to the finished product, which was
Right.
that detention basin. So, you know,
So
that
the
area
original
was
plan was the original plan per the special permit was to remove the soil.
for the soil to leave the site, correct, to be trucked
Okay.
off.
All right. I
So if I
think,
may, Mr. Chair,
yep, go ahead.
question before you is whether these improvements as described are minor in nature, or I gotta bring up the actual language.
Yeah. You're in the same page as me. That was
Yeah.
what I was going to bring up, is that we're probably to the point now where we need to discuss whether we consider this to be minor or not.
Can I ask, and while you're doing that, Ann, not to be a distraction, if it is not to be considered minor, what are the consequences for the applicant?
We would put it on the agenda for next month as a public hearing item. It would be noticed in the paper. They would do their noticing of the neighbors and the signs as required. And then they would be heard at the June 5th meeting
As
as a
And so-
public hearing.
And if we do decide it's minor, then what is the next steps for
If
the
you
applicant?
do decide it's minor, they still have to wait a month because it's not on the agenda correctly to be heard as a special permit without a public hearing. So there's a
Is there-
noticing issue either way. They have to wait a month.
is the project complete? Does it have a CO for the whole project?
Oh, absolutely not.
Okay.
This is
Yeah.
a,
So
this is
so
a.
Sean-
project.
Sean, to answer your question, technically the project's not complete. So technically that could still be considered a pile of soil that just hasn't left the site yet.
Yeah, that's basically, you hit the nail on the head.
Because it's not CO'd yet. They
Well,
in
Well, also-
light of all this, they wouldn't get a CO until it was removed if we were to say no long-term to the whole
That-
process.
that is the essence.
Also, they don't have a fence up yet.
Correct. They haven't put a fence up, so that's at least something.
That's the essence of my question.
Yep.
Thank you.
Michael, based on the plans here and the photographs, it doesn't appear that this improvement is even within the line of sight of any neighbors on South Fair Street.
No, sir. And to your point, we were asked by, I believe it was Jamie, a while back, and it might have been, the interims, to go to historical commission because that area technically is historical and it needed historical approval, for 66 High Street. So we did go to them. The chair actually came out and I submitted a letter as part of the project that they didn't even want to look at it because you couldn't even see it. And they believed that it wasn't, a big deal. And then when we went to design review last week or a couple weeks ago, they had the same feeling. You can't really see it. It's been used, that area, for the last 5 or 6 years as a dog park. And, the request from design review was, hey, we get it that people can now go inside and be with their dogs. So can you add a couple benches inside there? And we said, sure. So the only thing they asked was to put seating benches. So, yeah, and that's how they came about. And I went back to my clients. I'm like, hey guys, why'd you put the wall and stuff in there for the parking? They said when it got down to winter and they were doing the head wall for the detention basin, it was getting to be a point where it was freezing. So they needed to put the concrete in then. So that's why they did that. There's no guide rail or fencing or anything extra that was put in, but that's why they had put the wall up.
Thanks,
And
Mike.
that area isn't even finished yet. They have to put the fill and bring it to the correct grades and stuff. So,
So, not to, that's the part, for me, that's the part that doesn't feel minor, is the wall and parking being added. I don't know, in theory, I could potentially get behind the idea of there's a pile of dirt here, we don't want to remove it, we want to change it into a dog park, being a minor change. Granted, it's right next to wetlands, so that's a question, I suppose, but I don't know, what's everyone's feelings in terms of whether they consider this to be minor or not?
It looks pretty minor to me. I mean, it's not visible from the neighbors or from the road. It's sort of institutionalizing something that has been informally going on for a while. I just don't see this as being a big deal.
So that's my sense as well, Scott.
Does anyone have any thoughts about the need for public notice? Or whether we should, as Ted says, it is minor, it's been there for a while, let it go.
I mean, that's part of the decision-making process of whether it's considered to be minor or not, and that's essentially what you're deciding.
Other commissioners.
Right.
Yeah, and honestly, guys, in our opinion, in Marjorie's opinion, it's minor, but we can't make that decision. That's why we have to come to you as the board to say, hey, you guys have to make the decision if it's minor. If it's minor, again, then we have to come back next month on June 5th. If it's not minor, then we have to, alert the neighbors and everything and still come back on June 5th. We're just trying to get a direction, really. In my personal opinion, it's minor.
You're doing the right thing. Thank you.
Bill?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Ted on this.
Bob, what do you think?
I think just because something, the visibility of something doesn't necessarily make it minor or not. I think what you're talking about with the parking spaces kind of leads it towards minor. I think that a decision we make here, because this is like the first decision that's being made on this thing, is a precedent setting, and so having new use for an area doesn't respect it. And yes, the fact that dog park essentially, but it hasn't been set up for that from the beginning. It hasn't been planned for that, which makes it sound like it's not minor in my opinion. And then I love dogs. I stop and say hi to every dog there is. I love to go to dog park and just say hello to dogs, but dog parks have an inherent risk to them in that dogs can be dangerous. And so there is I think notifying neighbors that this is a thing that's happening, and people are gonna be allowed to have this area where somebody could go and people can let their dogs loose in a contained area is a thing that people should know about.
Yeah, well, Bob, let me just add, I have been, as many of you have been in business, and there's this term, and I'll just, revise it to call permit creep. And whether it's, administrative creep or, just, things just evolve. And if you're not paying close attention, as Bob is suggesting we do, it just happens. And I'm in agreement with Bob. I think that it's not serious, but I want to stay on top of it.
Yep. And if I may just add to that comment, this is a private dog park for residents only.
Yeah.
No neighbors or anybody that's not a tenant can use this. And it's the tenants in the HOA that wants it. So it's not like, a great example is I designed the dog park in the town of Madison at the old airport site that you can see from Route 1. That is a physical site for dogs. It has a sectional area for small dogs, so they wouldn't attack big dogs and so on and so forth. If you look at our plan, we have the specific things that the state requires as far as the mutt bits and the disposal. So, we even went so far as going through the process, believe it or not, for urine and feces when they go to the bathroom, that all has to be figured out. So that's all taken into consideration. But the biggest thing is that, hey, this is not for the neighbors. The neighbors can't see it. The neighbors can't even hear the dogs because the closest neighbor is so far away from the site. You have to understand this project is way in the back, way even past the parking area. This is further than the parking area and further than the garages that exist there. So it's basically opposite or adjacent to the marsh area. But again, it's in a area that's already been approved by DEP, by the Planning and Zoning Commission, by everybody to be a worked area. And again, it's right up against the existing driveway where the cars are going. So, it's also important to note that there is no real increase in pervious area or anything that has to be done or designed for the detention basin. It's such a small area. It doesn't take up really any space there.
We haven't heard from Kevin.
Bill had his hand up, so Bill can go ahead and ask this question first.
I just was curious if you did notice the neighbors, none of the neighbors that aren't living in the community would fall within that circle, would they?
No, it would only be within the circle that we would have to notify. But listen, everybody has the right to come on here as a resident of the town of Guilford to give their input. Just like
if it's not a public hearing.
Right. Yeah, if it's in the regular meeting, then no. All right, Kevin.
Yeah, so I had two issues. One was going to be the proximity of neighbors in the viewscape, and the other one was going to be the dog park and the associative parking lot work and the runoff associated with that. I feel like the question of the proximity of neighbors not really having a view, I'm not concerned about that anymore. So I actually don't have a problem not doing the special permit. And I feel like the runoff issues can be handled in the application process. So I'm comfortable with calling this minor and having it come in as just a regular application.
So Ann, do we need to do a formal vote on this
I
request?
would suggest you do, and then we will discuss this section of the ordinance after we run through a couple other items. But yes, I would think you want an actual motion and vote on whether in this instance this applicant can go forward with the request for special permit modification without a public hearing.
All right.
So
who'd like to
moved.
make a motion?
Second.
So we have a motion from Ted and a second from Kevin. Any other discussion?
The only thing I just want to say is that,
Go ahead, Rob. Bob.
yeah, the only thing I want to say is, while I think it isn't minor, I perfectly like the whole plan that I've seen, and I have no problem with the plan itself.
Well, the plan's gonna come before you again,
Right.
so you get plenty of chance to
From what I've seen, that's,
to decide for yourself whether you like it or not at that point. So I think, I kind of stated the same thing. I feel like for me, the wall and the parking being added, for me bumps that over being a minor. But that's just my vote. So we have what are we called? We had a motion and a second, so we'll vote, and this is to approve the request. Bob?
I'm gonna say nay.
Roger?
Yes.
Kevin Clark?
Yes.
Ted Sands?
Yes.
Bill Freeman?
Yes.
Sean Cosgrove?
I will say yes.
And I'm gonna vote no. Motion carries 5-2.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Again,
you.
we'll
So,
see you guys next
see you
month
next
on
month.
June 5th. So we were the first test case. I think it went pretty smooth. You know,
No, it really it didn't. That's why we have to fix the process.
well, for
Yeah.
me, it went smooth. I had to ask you for this. You guys said yes. Now I have to go to the next meeting.
Yeah.
Right.
Like I'm s-
So regardless, I knew I was coming back for the next meeting. I get it. I don't mind being the guinea pig.
We so enjoy seeing you.
Yes. Yes.
It's been a little bit, but thank you. It's good seeing you guys and have a great night.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
All right, Ann.
Mr. Chair, if we can skip back to the regular meeting, I believe we have to officially table the 66 High Street site plan and coastal site plan application.
Yep, do I have a motion to do so?
Second.
I'll second.
So is Bill making the motion then?
Yeah. I thought you were making the motion.
You get the second. No, that's not my role. All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor to table, please say aye.
Aye.
Carries.
Okay, couple other business items. 1486 Boston Post Road. The bane of my existence. Frank finally on Monday came in with his bond, posted it, paid his outstanding fees. And now he has 180 days to finish his site work. I
Either
will not
finish the work or
can ask
come back with a
modification.
modification.
Right. I will not hesitate to pull that bond. I will tell you, it took him 4 months to post it. And I think that I personally feel that's outrageous and he's flaunting the process, but it's taken care of. Hopefully he comes in with a special permit modification soon.
And it's very good news that this happened. It could have gotten very ugly otherwise if it didn't. So that's good news. Like so far so good. I might make this observation though. I pass that site every day, multiple times a day, and there's been little or no activity on site, short of little landscaping and spreading some mulch. So that left side of the parking lot is got a couple pieces of equipment there that have been idle for months, literally months.
All winter.
Yeah, I'm not encouraged from what I see. Let's put it that way. I'm pleased the bond's posted. That's a great step. I guess I'd have to say I'm not encouraged it's going to get finished.
I have a question. Wouldn't the most logical steps, if he is not intending to build that building, then he would come back in for a modification of his special permit to bifurcate those two objects, correct?
Yes,
Correct.
Okay.
yes, but he needs to do that not on October 15th when the thing's about to expire. He needs to do that next meeting or the meeting after, very quickly here.
And he knows that, correct? Very
He
clearly.
does know that, and he's known that since he opened. So, and I still don't have an application.
All right, so can we be clear? He has to notify us by our next meeting. if he's not gonna proceed with the next billing.
I mean, technically, he has 180 days.
Right, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I don't think we can force.
We can't
it.
require
We don't
anything
have
more
any
than that.
authority to require that.
Yeah.
I mean, off the record, yeah, you definitely should. But that's
I
his
just-
choice.
You know, I know Roger has been concerned about this, and I have been too, is that this the way that we handle this reflects upon the integrity and the way that we operate as a commission. So I want to stay within very tight lines of how we operate relative to a former commissioner of the planning and zoning.
Well, I would say that's the position that Ann has taken. I mean, there's a lot of cases in the past where we wouldn't have fined people for certain things. So she's been doing fines. She's been actively trying to work with the applicant, with the homeowner, and she's already just stated on the record that she's more than willing to pull the bond when the time runs out.
I'm
So,
just putting on the record. I just want to
Yeah.
be straight and narrow.
I
and
can
even
ask-
last meeting, we talked about what the next steps might be in terms of court and whatnot. So, I mean, I think we're all taking this very seriously.
I mean, I could offer this, that I could send him an email tomorrow that says, Frank, thank you so much for posting your bond. We expect if we would appreciate a timely application for special permit modification if that is your desire, and kind of leave it at that. If that's something you'd like me to do, but
Yeah,
I
that's
don't have
fine.
any authority to say that he has to make that decision or even get an application to us in any given amount of time.
I think that's a good idea, Ian.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Ann.
Okay, another interesting request, 189 3 Mile course. I've got to give you some dates here to round out this request. So I wasn't here when this happened, but I will give you the background. So by state statute, subdivisions need to be recorded on the land records in a certain amount of time. The first set of time is 90 days after the appeal period. And then an applicant can ask for 2 subsequent extensions of that time frame in order to meet the state statute for recording. We have a situation with 187 3 Mile course where both my staff, me, Jernique really at the time, and Todd, we have all dropped the ball. So let me give you some dates and then give you some options here. So originally this subdivision was approved, the publication date was June 29th. If you add the 15 plus 90 days, the statutory recording deadline was October 12th of 2023. Prior to that deadline, Todd Anderson submitted, I don't know how accurate I'm going to be on this, Todd, but you can correct me. I believe a request to Jernique and perhaps myself to extend that original recording period. That request was never conveyed to the commission. Subsequent to that date, the second 90-day extension period would have, would have expired. I believe the date was December 15th, but I don't have it right in front of me. Todd made a request.
January 10th.
What?
January 10th.
No, that was when you.
I'm looking at Donna's email to me right here.
Okay. Okay, right. I'm sorry.
And,
So
and I agree with
second, yeah, the second deadline would have been January 10th. Todd made a request on February 2nd. So 3 weeks after that second deadline to extend the recording deadline. And then there would have, had that all been copacetic, the second 90-day extension would have expired on April 4th. And
April
the-
9th.
April 9th, sorry. And the subdivision maps were delivered to the office on April 4th. So we have a situation where this office didn't notify the commission in time for the first extension request. The second extension request was late, and the third extension request was also late. So this is the question. I ran this by council. I said, what do we do? Mea culpa, we all made a mistake here. The advice that council gave was there really isn't any solid land use law on the topic, though their commissions have been known to retroactively approve subdivision recording extensions. We've admitted our mistake. Todd's fully owned his piece in it. I think at this point, we're just trying to get the subdivision recorded. So this would be my offering to the compromise gods, would be to say, we don't want to set bad precedent for those who come to us in the future for being wishy-washy about state statutory dates, that deadlines that need to be met, whether that's our fault or Todd's or whomever's. We really don't want to set bad precedent. I would offer that perhaps the commission consider allowing Todd to reapply for the next hearing, the next meeting, next month, and the commission waive the fee on the subdivision plans. And that way, if he can get approval at the next meeting, he can immediately go to the town clerk and record the subdivision. We haven't set bad precedent there because he will have new approval, and then he can just run over to the clerk's office and this can all be cleaned up and we aren't muddying the record. But that's where we are. I don't know, Todd, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, I as far, I would love for you guys to approve it tonight, but I understand setting precedent on missed deadlines and so forth. So I fully understand that. My client won't be happy with it because he has excavators and blasters set up for, they were supposed to be there the end of last week. He's pushed them off to the end of this week. And now I have to tell him that he's got to wait another month. He won't be happy with me at all about that, but I do understand about setting precedent and so forth. So if you guys would consider that, I would be much appreciative of that. This, just for the record, this was a subdivision that fit all the criteria and so forth. We weren't asking for any special considerations. There were conditions placed on the approval, which we have met all of them as far as the town engineer and the health department and everything. So, we are fully compliant with everything that was laid in stone for the conditions of the approval, the original approval. But, as much as I hate it, I do understand the not setting precedent part of it. So if you would consider hearing us next month and immediately approving it, that would be awesome.
Thanks, Todd.
I like that idea of proceeding as you outlined, and this'll, there've been a couple of miscues here. This'll clean that up, get us refocused and get back on track, and let's make this happen.
I agree completely.
Yeah, I do too. I think that getting on a, I've used this term several times tonight. Getting on the straight and narrow, so we're not gonna be second guessed at some future date. I think that we just stay.
Well, we will always get second guessed, John, but
Oh,
your point is well taken.
and then,
So, is
then
this
we'll
gonna,
just-
Bill?
then we'll just resign.
Yeah, Bill?
this is not gonna be a public hearing then?
Yeah, it's not, it's a site plan application, right? Technically?
It's a
Yeah.
subdivision.
Subdivision application. So yes, it would not be a public hearing.
So is there any value in having this singular special meeting to move the timeline up, since it's kind of everybody's fault? so to
It
speak?
would still have to be publicly noticed for 14 days, Ann, is that right?
If we want to be safe, and I have no staff, so please don't do that to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Never mind.
I like where your head's at, Bill, though.
I just wanted
It's
to make
outside
you
the
feel
box.
better.
That would have been awesome, Bill. Thank you.
Any other, Bob or Kevin, any opinions? All right, so it looks like, do you want a formal motion of your proposal, Ann?
It's really up to Todd. I don't think you need to make a motion if
I
Todd's
think
happy
this is just
with
kind of,
just,
yeah.
reapplying on Friday, and then we'll put it on the agenda and we're good to
We
go.
don't- We do have to agree to waive the fee though, correct?
Yes, that's true.
So
I make a motion that,
I move that we waive the fee on the reapplication.
I'll second that.
All right, that's Ted and Bill.
There's no
Uh,
state fees that can't be waived, right? Some Wetlands
There's-
Commission, there would be state fees that couldn't be waived. So just
Right,
that.
we can only waive the local fee, so
Right.
there would be a $60 fee.
Right.
But it's not hundreds of dollars, which is worse.
We have a motion and a second, any discussion? Bob Harrington,
Yes.
Roger Joyce,
Yes.
Kevin Clark,
Yes.
Ted Sands,
Yes.
Bill Freeman,
Yes.
Sean Cosgrove,
Aye.
and I'll also vote yes. We'll see you in a month as well, Mr. Anderson. Thank you.
Ready? Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Okay, I have three other things that are not on the agenda that I'd love to chat with you about very quickly. The first is there was a request from Jason, who's not here, to consider the action on the Desmond Blight issue. Now, I haven't read the whole file and I have not talked to council about this, but his point to me in an email was, we've enforced our fines with Frank's Dunkin' Donut project. Why are we not enforcing the judgment that came down on the Desmond property? And again, I haven't read the whole thing, so I can't really, you know more than I do on this one. And the question was whether we want to discuss this formally on another agenda or
I don't think it needs to be formal necessarily, because it's really just us telling our CEO whether they should be doing a cease and desist and set the process in motion for fines if necessary.
Do we have a ZBO?
And that's Ann is the acting CEO.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know
Gee.
why, I guess my point is, I
did
don't
you get a
know-
chance to check with Chuck? Because as far as I knew, all the court cases were completed, but I don't think there was any other appeals. I think they missed their last appeal date or whatever, so I believe everything is literally finished, which from my opinion means that if she's still operating, then we should be giving her a cease and desist. I think it's pretty simple.
I have not had time to check in with Chuck, but I definitely will before I take any action. I really wanted to get a sense of the rest of the commission and whether this is,
But-
there may have been a reason that we weren't,
Right.
assessing.
The complex part of this, and that you
Yeah.
still need to talk to Chuck about, is I would assume, without having gone over there and knowing a whole bunch about what's going on, my assumption is that she's operating inside her house as opposed to outside of her house. And I don't know if that makes a difference. in this case. So, Bill,
I can add a little contextual aspect to this.
I'm sure
She
you can.
does, I bet. She does receive something, always little boxes and big boxes. I don't know where they go. I don't go over there. I think for the neighbors, the bigger issue is that she put all these structures up without permits, neither zoning, health, or building. And they're in disrepair and falling down, and people want, the neighbors would like to see the place cleaned up and get those structures out of there.
So then it's more of a question of blight and less a question of a cease and desist about the activity.
It's both, because
Yeah.
I don't think that it didn't specify whether it was indoors or outdoors or in
Just
our
said
house, or it said you cannot do that on this piece of property.
It's fair.
Um,
So, yep. Bob?
I'm a little out of the loop here. What is the activity that should be happening in the property?
Can we just say, let me just say something. Bill, you gotta step aside.
No, the lawsuit's over. I don't have to step aside at all. I'm just another aggrieved person.
Yeah.
I don't know. The lawsuit was a big deal, and I had to have my own counsel and all that stuff. But the lawsuit's been settled. It went against her in both the planning and then the ZBA, and I'm just as willing to be as a part of this as I don't feel that I should be penalized because I happen to be next door. That just doesn't seem to make sense.
I just think any future action by any manner, by any part of town government or anybody else, it would be much better if you recuse.
I will give it
I don't know.
consideration.
Thank you.
I mean, we could get an opinion from Chuck on it, I guess.
If Chuck is in agreement with you, I have no problem. I'm just, I had to sit on my hands for a long time. So
I know you
Understood.
did. I did.
and I still am.
The just so everybody knows, the question of recusal is a kind of a weird one. You can't really require it technically, so it's kind of weird. Squarely.
It is weird, and I did find that out subsequent to the whole thing. It was like, well, in other cases, people have said no. I think Phil gave me that.
Yeah, but yeah. Anyway, so Bob, quick and dirty. There was a rescue operation for raccoons and also some amount of possums that was happening unpermitted and for a long time, probably prior to when her neighbors moved in, and then at some point it expanded a little bit, and that prompted it being brought to the attention of whether or not this was actually a permitted operation, and we eventually voted that it was not, and then it went through the appeals process. So, and that took approximately a year and a half, maybe 2 years for that to resolve. 2 years, yeah.
It actually went to the Supreme Court.
State Supreme Court, yeah.
Wow. Okay, so I remember that showing up in the Guilford Courier, saying about that. It actually snagged my attention because my grandmother is a wildlife rehabilitator, and was licensed to handle rabies vector species and had all the stuff that she needed when she was here in Connecticut. So
there wasn't any question about whether or not the person in question was able to do it or licensed or whatever. It was really a land use question, and that's all we really could speak to, and that's how we made a decision. So,
So was a cease and desist issued after the court case resolved, or did we just?
No, so there was a cease and desist that was before the court case, obviously, and I don't know technically whether there was a deal, a quote unquote deal in place that during the appeals process she was not supposed to be operating. I don't know if that was us extending the cease and desist technically, or if the cease and desist was like not there, but we just had a deal. I don't really know the logistics of that legally. So your question is basically, is the original cease and desist, is that still in effect? I don't actually know.
So she She went to court to fight the cease and desist order. And
Right.
she lost that, so the cease and desist order stands. And now it just needs to be
Enforced.
fulfilled.
So the question I have, if she's doing something that's in her house, in order to show that she's not following cease and desist, we have to prove that she's continuing to operate. How do we do that?
I would have to check with council on that.
Because that's the
Question for-
question.
It's a question for other people than us.
Yeah, so you could just instruct me to say, this is what I suggest. You tell me, go talk to Chuck, figure out what our next steps would be, and then let's talk about it at the next meeting. That would be my course of action.
I
If
agree.
this is something you want me to pursue.
And
Yes.
there's two things that are of concern, the continuation of the action that she was not allowed to do, and also the fact that she put up structures that are not even
A separate
remotely.
light issue, yeah.
Well, so yeah, ZEO would have to look at it. Basically, ZEO would have to receive a complaint for blight and would have to look at it and adjudicate, right?
Yeah.
And then come to us saying, hey, I think this is a blight, or hey, I don't.
Right. Okay, let me do some homework. If that's amenable to everyone, and I will get back to you next meeting.
Yep.
Okay, I don't have the draft minutes from the last meeting, but I plan to have them for you for next meeting. Two other quick issues, maybe not so quick, but this is coming up. We are building out a new permitting system for the town. And and I know I've mentioned this before, but it's coming to this issue is coming up because we're building out this new permitting system. And we're trying to make it as efficient and functional as possible. The new zoning regs require me to issue a zoning permit for anything, pretty much anything under the sun, anything that has a building permit. And that includes things, anything that whole category includes things like I'm doing a bathroom renovation, I am changing out interior doors, I'm moving my toilet 6 inches, lots of stuff that is interior to a building. I'm upgrading my electrical service. Things that don't really have zoning implications. What happens currently is that we have zoning permits and we have building permits, and I have to review both. And every time one set of drawings changes on one side of that equation for each thing, I have to go into a system that is very hard to deal with. Anyways, it takes about half an hour, 45 minutes to review one of these. Guilford's in a huge building boom. If I really have to require a zoning permit for every building permit, that's gonna double our work. So the question I have to you, I think people are telling me what has happened historically is that whoever was in this office kind of ignored those things that were interior to a building that didn't change the floor area ratio or building coverage, and kind of just let those things go. I need some direction from you. Do we want to change the language?
If we wanted that, then what kind of changes to language would need to be made in the regulations to make that so?
I would review it with Glenn and get back to you with actual language change suggestions. This is the question though. There's a reason that got incorporated into these regulations. I don't know what the reason was, but I was hoping that maybe you guys did know.
You mean it got incorporated into the new regs
Yes.
and wasn't part of the old?
It may have been
Again,
part of the old, but it wasn't.
It's my stand. I know you've asked me a bunch of these questions, and my stance, you probably get tired of my standard answer of either one, it was from one of the town staff, or it was from a state reg that had to get updated, or it was from Glenn.
Okay.
Glenn's recommendation. Those are unless we know about it, which none of us discussed that
Does
part.
anybody- Yeah, okay.
And it might have been in the regs, but you're saying essentially it was just ignored.
Ignored.
Yeah.
And the thing is that that's fine and dandy for regs that were 60 years old. I have a really hard time at this point saying I'm going to ignore anything that's in the ordinance because they're brand spanking new. And
Sure.
we will, like Sean said, we should be by the book, and I feel strongly.
Yeah, I mean, would you say that it's typical that the regs don't really speak to anything related to building permits, and they don't really speak really to anything related to health department either, right? I mean, aren't those activities a little bit more siloed than
They are,
planning?
but yeah, this made it in somehow. So let me do
That's
a
what,
little
well, that's what I'm
research.
saying. So like,
Yeah.
I would kind of feel like, you know, the health department has tons of requirements that are basically they barely touch when it comes to planning and zoning.
Right.
And I think the same is probably the same with building department
Building, yeah,
requirements.
definitely.
So that would be my feeling. I don't, does anyone else have a different opinion?
No, I'm just trying to get my handle around this. So, and I think what you're talking about is de minimis requirements. So, let's not make them so onerous that they require permits. And I got this right?
Yeah, I think so, but I didn't know if I had discovered something that was really intentional or a carryover.
What I would encourage you to do in all your spare time, and I've got other questions for you about all your spare time, is please look at and give us some advice, whether it's in a regular meeting or whether I stop down and talk to you, about where the de minimis, levels should be. And they probably are too onerous right now.
Yeah, I would
Right.
agree.
Well, and that's what I was trying to say was like, does the planning and zoning regulations really need to jump into the arena of building department or even health department? I mean, I don't really think so.
Well, I mean, when we did this whole rewrite, I mean, we said it was going to be iterative, and I think we should adopt that and revisit it repeatedly to be sure that we're not putting up an extra burden on the public to abide by the public the zoning.
Not just public, but staff and ourselves and
Exactly.
the whole process, really.
Yeah.
So
And
you
and
gave-
also
you-
the applicants too, right? We're putting lots of onerous things on the applicants that we don't necessarily need to be
Yeah,
as
because
well.
they're like, I'm just moving my toilet and
Right.
swapping my shower, and why do I need a zoning permit?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what you're describing, it like there's even situations where someone would be changing a room in their house, putting a door on something that didn't have a door, and all of a sudden now they have an extra bedroom. But even in that case, that's the health department's discussion. That doesn't have anything to do with us still.
Right.
Unless they have to do something to their septic permit and that's going to affect their planning, their zoning, then it would come to us, right? But like
Right.
all of that process that led up to that doesn't have to be involved with us.
Okay. I will work on that and get back to you.
All right.
Which brings us to this 9.4.G.6. I don't know why this is in here. This seems really weird to me as just.
I don't know if you've spent a lot of time looking at our old regs, but our old regs had a lot of things like this that gave the Planning and Zoning Commission a lot of quote unquote flexibility.
Yeah, I guess I would say for this, I will just tell you, I have been sued for much less things that were considered minor by me. I disagree with what you guys did, but that's fine. I don't think this dog park was minor in any shape or form, but this is truly problematic because there is no definition of minor. But also a special permit by its very nature is really meant to be like the top of the line in terms of approvals. So why would we suddenly say you don't have to have a public hearing for that? But love to hear what you have to say on this because it's a oddball one.
I guess I would fall on the simplicity of if it was under a special permit and they want to modify it, then they're modifying their special permit and call it a day.
It's too-
Honestly,
the phraseology is just too complex to understand.
Right. And I get that by having it in there, we're allowing the opportunity to take it easy on applicants and opportunity for small things, quote unquote. But yeah, it's subjective and it's always going to be, and that's going to change day to day, week to week, month to month, right? So
It's going to change with the composition of the commission.
and I think, but from my perspective, it's that's worth it if there's value there. But I don't know if there's a value there really.
There's value in many ways. One, it puts less burden on future town planners and commissioners, and it makes it easier for the public to understand the code. I mean,
To take it out, you mean?
yeah, to understand what.
That's what I was saying. I don't know if there's value of keeping it in, of
No, I
having
agree.
that
Yeah.
flexibility.
I think
I don't like it.
Yeah.
I think it should be.
That's what I'm saying. Flexibility
eliminated.
is that's what I'm trying to say is flexibility is great as long as it provides value to us, to the town, to applicants, to, cut people a break when it makes sense to cut people a break, right? But this seems like it's such a minor thing that just
Yeah.
Well, and
doesn't really provide a lot of value.
it's odd too, because they're not saving any time, right? They had to
Right.
come and ask the question of the commissioners. And then we've got to now renotice at least the agenda, but so they don't save time. It makes me wonder why, it makes me suspicious really, because why wouldn't you want a public hearing and have public discourse? That seems to me like you're almost trying to get away with something, but that's just the cynic in me.
Yeah.
And additionally, in addition to whether or not it brings value, you've already pointed out that it brings risk.
Right.
Yeah.
I think the situation is that we were presented with this in this particular case, and it did seem rather minor in this particular case, but I think that it should be eliminated and it should go to a public hearing.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with that too.
I'm just gonna add that to my list of, the next set of text amendments, and we can
Yeah.
discuss it further, but let me,
You just have to make sure that the timing of that change happens after what the gentleman's already planning to come in next month.
oh, yeah,
Yeah.
no, the text
Yeah.
change take months.
That's done.
and months, So
Yeah.
that's
No worry on that one.
right there.
So
Um,
I would give serious consideration if you're going to talk to Chuck, as you obviously will, to helping us understand what is minor.
No, I think we're going to eliminate that.
But we are.
Yeah.
That's what it seems like.
I'll do a search and make sure the word minor doesn't come up anywhere else that isn't defined, because I think that can be
Good point.
problematic.
I would be shocked if the state has like a definition of minor. That would be shocking.
I'd be surprised.
No, I
Well,
meant this
operationally-
document.
She's going to check our document.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that would shock me too if there was a definition of minor.
And you might, as you're at it, look for major too.
Yeah,
Yeah, sure.
right. That's true. If neither
That's true,
one's defined, we have a problem, right?
Right,
Right.
right.
So, okay.
Okay.
That is all I have for tonight.
All right.
And can I just ask?
Yes.
So Jernique is no longer an employee of the town of Guilford?
She resigned, yes.
Okay. And how are you doing with recruiting someone else?
I have interviews for administrative assistants in, I believe on the 14th. I'm interviewing 4 people. Only one of them actually has administrative experience. I'm getting the weirdest set of applications ever, but I got like 25 applications and only, well, 2 have administrative experience. The rest were all over the place. And, you know, I don't need people to know land use law, but I need to know that you know how to use a computer, that you can write a decent letter, and that you are personable and have my back. But these applications, they were like the ZEO applications, which we'll talk about because Scott was there in the last round. The applications I'm getting are truly bizarre, just bizarre. But yes, I have interviews set up. I'm very hopeful. Scott and I had 3 interviews set up for ZEO. I don't know, it was a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I had high hopes. There was a paralegal who applied. I had really high hopes for her, but she came out flatly and said, "I'm going to graduate school to get my PhD in 2 years." And I'm like,
No,
okay.
no.
And then we were waiting for the other 2 to start, and Sam from HR came in and she's like, "Well, you're done." The other 2, one of them claimed to have car trouble and couldn't get here. And the other one essentially withdrew his application at the last minute.
So have you tried contacting any school in Connecticut or beyond Connecticut that have, you know, programs for?
Yeah, I can do that. The problem is there are no certified planning programs in the state of Connecticut. There's one landscape architectural program, and of course there's architecture programs. I would be happy with somebody who was personable, who could read a set of plans. I'm not picky anymore. And who was willing to learn. I can't even find anybody who knows how to read a set of plans.
Wow.
And I looked today, this is the other problem is that Casio, the organization that's supposed to be overseeing this whole thing, they only have one introductory training workshop a year. They're holding it in May this year.
Wow.
And I figured with the state statute as it is requiring everybody to be certified that they would have 200 slots in their class. They opened up their application while I was on vacation. They told me it filled up in 2 hours. They had 25 slots for 169 towns. It's not going to do the trick.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I have a consultant who's working part-time. I'm considering chopping the job up into mini jobs and see if I can find a bunch of part-time people, like somebody who could just sign off on generator and HVAC permits. Because we see a lot of those. That doesn't require a lot of thought. Somebody who could just sign off on solar permits. I don't know. I'm at a loss.
But and so is part of the problem the pay scale?
It could be. I looked today, there are 9 other towns that are advertising for either zoning enforcement officers / inland wetlands officers, you know, all of that type of town. Some people are paying $50 an hour, which I calculated at 104K. Other people are paying $22 an hour, which is piddly nothing. We are somewhere in the higher end of things. I don't think it's a bad starting salary. You know, if you have 2 or 3 years of experience to make 84K a year, but what do I know? I mean, I don't know what people are expecting at this point.
Yeah.
I would add that it's not a problem that we're just having Guilford. I know of plenty of other inspection departments that are having issues with inspections for sure, but I would imagine that is the case with planning departments as well.
Yeah. Well, I think we should collectively just acknowledge what Anne has been handling for several months now that given Jernique has left us unfortunately, and that we desperately need to get some more help. And so I just want to thank you, Ann.
Oh, well, thank you for thanking me. I would say if you know anybody who's remotely interested in this line of work, I'm willing to train the right person. They can't not know anything about land use law though.
What areas of the zoning enforcement officer role is the most difficult for you to, administer outside of your planning?
It's probably time.
Yeah, it's just that.
Is it inspections or?
No, we're not doing inspections at this point. We have Guilford, unlike the rest of the world, is in a building boom. Just reviewing permits. If I had somebody sitting in front of the computer, reviewing and signing off on permits, that could take 3 full days a week. Just
Have
to
you-
get permits out the door.
Have you talked to Matt about, bringing in another consultant? I know you have a
I
part-time
can't find
consultant.
any other consultants. That's the
Yeah.
thing. All the
Oh, so-
consultants are booked as well.
Got it.
So that's why I'm thinking we have some, like, I'm gonna call them kids, I know that's ageist, in the health department who are looking for more work. And I'm like, well, they are already reviewing permits. I could very easily teach them to sign off on our really minor stuff and they could gain some overtime hours or whatever. So I'm trying to think creatively of how to, chop it up and make more manageable work until I don't know if I'm gonna find a person.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, again, thanks.
Well,
Please hang in there.
Yeah.
We will do what we can on our own to convey to Matt and others that you need help and I'm just hoping you're communicating well with Matt and other town staff and
Yeah, I'm doing what I can, but I am realizing that I'm tired and I've been really grinding for months and I do need some help. So I'm hoping at least getting an admin in, somebody who could post agendas, put things in the right filing, all the administrative stuff that I'm doing. I think that will help and then we'll just keep looking for somebody else. But honestly, if you guys know anybody,
Okay.
have them come talk to me.
All right. Thank you.
okay, we will. Thank you.
All right.
Right.
I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
second.
Sean, you get it.
So moved.
Second to Bill. All in favor.
Aye.
Say aye. Thanks, everyone.
Good night,
Good
everyone.
night.
Good night.